What's up, campers? Probably the most dramatic thing that has ever happened to me while camping just happened, and it's no coincidence, I think, that it happened right now, because welcome to episode 1 of the Campthropology podcast. My name's Roland, and I'm out here camping in the wilderness right now. So they say when you start a podcast that you need a hook, and I was thinking about a hook and I couldn't figure one out. And then literally, so I was just going to wing it. And so I was changing my clothes because it's a little chilly out here. We're out in San Bernardino Mountains at a Yellow Post site. I was changing my clothes. I put my phone on my roof. I have an Outback, a Subaru Outback, and it's a hatchback. So I put it right where the ledge actually raises up. Changing my clothes. I go to close it, and I didn't realize that the phone slipped into the crack, like the little hinge where the Outback closes. And so I changed my clothes. I'm walking over here to start the podcast, hit the button, beeps 3 times. The hatch starts closing, and I just start hearing this crunching. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And then so I'm looking around. I thought it kind of sounded like sand at first. And so I look over and I hit the hatch up really quick. The manual opens, so it opens back up. Lo and behold, my phone is crunched. I have a screen protector. I thought it was just a screen protector. I was praying it was just a screen protector. It wasn't. It's the front. It's completely cracked. The screen is still working, thank God. So I go and I see that I have no service, which I usually have cell service up here. And it's a little exclamation point. I've never seen that before. I take off my case, and on the back, there's a video component to this podcast that I'll be putting on YouTube, but the back is completely crushed on one corner, down one side, and I'm assuming that's where the cell signal component is, because I have zero service. So this is a little bit more dramatic than I'm making it, but I've told people where I was camping. They know where I am, but they wouldn't know if something happened to me. Everybody would start to worry if they didn't hear from me, because when I first got here, I have service. So I text everybody, I'm here to go. I have a buddy, shout out to Alex. He's coming up, a couple buddies tonight, or Alex is coming up tonight, a couple buddies tomorrow. So I told everybody, I'm here. I dropped a pin, but then I was like, oh shit, I'm not going to be able to text them at all because my cell phone is completely gone. But I was like, oh my gosh, I have the Zoleo. So I go into my gear bag, take out the Zoleo, turn it on, and I'm like, please, I hope the Zoleo is working at least. I turn on the Zoleo, it beeps. Lo and behold, it connects to the phone. I'm like, okay, this is great. So I start texting, first of all, Shelby, texted my mom, texted Alex, and the little thing is spinning, and I'm like, please go through. And lo and behold, it went through. So Zoleo is incoming, so I might be answering messages during the podcast. Told everybody I'm okay. So now it's basically like I'm dispersed camping with no service. But if the Zoleo didn't work, I'm about an hour from a paved road. And because if my cell phone didn't work and the Zoleo didn't work, I would have to go old school and go to like a restaurant or into Idlewild and hope it's open and ask to borrow someone's phone, because it's not just a service thing. Even when I get back to service, my phone's, completely effed. And luckily, I literally just paid this thing off. It's the iPhone 13 Pro Max. I just paid it off. So that's one good thing. But that goes to show you, opening the podcast was something about being prepared. Having the Zoleo is saving my butt right now. I mean, luckily, everything's fine. I'm okay. There's no emergency. But it's one of those things where if there was an emergency, or if the Zoleo didn't work, I would probably drive down to town and call people. Like I said, luckily I'd still be able to get the numbers off my phone. But this just actually gave me a good idea for camping, especially if you're going reverse camping or anywhere. Write down the numbers, because if you're hiking, you drop your phone, you lose your phone, it goes down a crevasses. And you don't have service, or you can't use your cell phone, like what just happened to me, at least if you go into town or if you see another hiker or someone, you can borrow the phone and still text people. So that got me on edge right before the podcast. And I mean, I guess it's a hook, but you couldn't write this yourself. But yeah, so if you're here tuning in for the first time, welcome. If not, I'm assuming lots of these listeners, you guys are going to be my first listeners. You probably follow me on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or something. I do have a notebook here because I'm going to try to keep us on track. But okay, let's get into it officially. And Alex already texted me back. I told him, bro, my phone's jacked. Zolio hit me up on here, so I might answer a text message here and there. But okay, so this has been a long time coming. I've been wanting to start a podcast for a while to talk about camping in general, a little bit more in depth, not just YouTube vlog style, but going over some topics and things for Campthropology, outdoors stuff. I want to have people on eventually, but bear with me. I'm getting my setup dialed in. I do a little bit of music kind of production stuff on the side. So I do have some of the mics and stuff. So hopefully this works. I have this windscreen on. Hopefully it's not too windy, but I hope you can hear this eagle that's been screeching, riding the thermals up there. It's been so beautiful up here. So let's relax a little bit and get into it. So this is just going to be an introduction episode, basically explaining who I am and what Campthropology is. I've never really done one of those videos on TikTok where it's like, hey, I'm Roland and this is what I do. So I'm going to go in depth into this, talk about a few main points. A lot of you had questions that I posted on TikTok and Instagram. So I'm going to go over those at the end. But yeah, let's kind of get this journey started here. So first and foremost, like I said, I'm Roland. I live in Southern California. I've been camping a long time, consistently. I grew up camping. So this is going to be answering some of your guys' questions too, but I will go through them again at the end. I grew up in Southern California. Luckily, there's a lot of places to camp around here. Luckily, my mom and dad did take me camping as a kid. I remember camping in Oceanside Harbor, kind of beach camping. It wasn't tent camping, but you could like stay in the van. We had a van when I was a kid. Going to Julian, we camped a little bit. One of the things that I remember is camping in San Felipe down in Mexico, like tent camping with family. We'd go down there every once in a while. And I just completely have always really like loved the outdoors, being outside. I work for a local municipality in SoCal, so I'm also outside when I'm working. So I kind of have the best of both worlds, and I'm really appreciative that I can get out. I have a schedule that allows me to camp pretty often, and yeah, I really enjoy it. Obviously, I know a lot of people enjoy it too. When I first started the TikTok, I thought that I always watched overlanding videos, and I thought, wow, these guys are so cool. The rigs are awesome. So when I first started the TikTok, I was kind of hoping to be like that. But what I realized really quickly is a lot of my followers and a lot of the following are new campers or people that are just getting into camping. And a lot of my videos that do the best are kind of like back to basics. And that's completely fine. I didn't start out with a full setup in comfortable camping, dispersed camping, and campground camping. Like I said, I started as a kid and worked my way up. Eventually, I went on I solo camp a lot, and that takes a lot of time too. But let's just kind of go over about me, who I am as a person. I hope that this podcast format can get a little bit more in depth. Like I said, so my kind of adult journey into the outdoor world kind of started I went to high school, went to community college, really thought it wasn't for me. And then after I thought it wasn't for me, I was like, you know what, but I want to do something. So I moved out and I was like 18, I think, with some buddies, and kind of did the whole just working full time a lot. And we were able to, it was 4 of us in a little townhome in Carlsbad, California. And we just did we drank and we hung out and we rode bicycles and fixies. And that was kind of my whole scene. I was an emo kid in high school. I played in bands. Music has always been really big for me. And then after that kind of goes, okay, this is what this is. I decided to do a trip with one of my friends at the time, still a good friend. I haven't spoke to them in a while, around the Pacific Rim, not the Pacific Crest Trail. But when I started telling people I was kind of backpacking the Pacific Rim, a lot of people thought I was saying the Pacific Crest Trail, which I didn't really understand at that time, but that loops into later. So our trip actually started, we flew out of LA, we did Tahiti, New Zealand, Australia, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, China. Well, we flew out, I was only in China, flew like a layover, but explored there for a little bit. And that actually kind of started my gear journey. Looking back and tracing back how I started realizing that being prepared and having things on you when you need them is actually really beneficial in real life. So that was an amazing trip. I might go into that a little bit more in depth at a different podcast episode. But for now, that kind of where I got into that. And I really love traveling. All those places I really loved, the culture, the people. We literally saved for this trip for like a year and a half. And it was one of those flight tickets where you have a year to use them, and you can fly, you can stay in the countries as long as you want, as long as you change the flight within a year. Came back to the States, worked a job. I worked with special needs kids for a long while actually. I worked with aircraft oxygen lines. I've worked for 1-800-GOT-JUNK. I've had like a lot of weird jobs growing up as a kid. I mean, I feel like that's when I was a kid. I feel old now. And then I started working for, like I said, a local city here in San Diego, and it was part-time, and I was like, what else am I going to do, actually? I didn't really understand, have a direction. So, again, I just kind of like traveled and honestly kind of partied until I was about, until 2016. I don't even know how old I was in 2016. And I decided to go back to community college, went back to community college. Luckily, I had my credits still there. Like my counselor at the time when I went back was like, you're lucky you came back this year because they would have all expired. So I had a lot of my general ed done, which was awesome. I took an anthropology class just out of the whim. Shout out to Lynn Miller at Maricosta. I completely fell in love with the subject. She took me under her wing. I had no clue what I was doing. And I started going to school. And around that same time too, I started a nonprofit called Glassless Minds. So I do a lot of poetry as well. So in this time between 2016, I started the nonprofit in 2010, but between 2010 and 2016, I was going to school and doing this nonprofit thing. Like I said, I fell in love with anthropology. I was in the honors program. Weirdly, I was never good at school before I went back to school. And that was a huge lesson that once you're interested in something and you can put effort into it, it's a lot easier to get, better at writing, not just poetry, but like academic writing. So in the honors program, I got into the McNair Scholarship Program, which is basically a first generation to go to college program. And then I got into UCSD with that scholarship, which was amazing. I got the blue and gold scholarship for the UC system. So I didn't graduate with a bunch of debt. I graduated in 2019, 18. But when I was at UCSD, part of the McNair Scholars Program is they basically give you a stipend and say, hey, choose this research project. As an undergrad, you're kind of doing introductory grad school level research, but kind of just getting your toes wet. Like I was supposed to go to grad school. All my mentors, all my professors were like, you got to go to grad school. This is the trajectory that you're doing. And I was down. I was like, this is cool. Like I would teach anthropology. I would love to be a professor one day, something in that effect. And then, I graduated in 2019. So I graduated in 2019. And then that was June of 2019. And then I was at my job and I was like, all right, well, I'll stay here for a little bit. And then I'll start, now that I have a degree, this little piece of paper, let's see how I can go out there in the world and find a job with my degree. So everybody knows what happened in 2020. And so a lot of people were getting laid off, that whole crazy era time. So I was like, I better just stay at this job because I got full-time, I think February of 2020. So I had benefits, a pension plan, all this stuff. And when the world seems like it was falling apart, I was so lucky to have a solid job that pays decently for what was happening at the time. I actually ended up buying my Subaru Outback. I have a 2020 Subaru Outback Onyx edition. And because everything was closed, I really started picking up camping again. I would say seriously, but yeah, it's weird to say seriously, but I started camping a lot. Before that, I went on trips here and there at least once or twice a year. Absolutely loved it. Got my little first setup dialed in, which was just like a big tub that I just threw everything into so that it was ready. So when I decided to go camping, you just put the tub into the car, fill the cooler with ice, food, and then kind of go. So that's where I started. I got a lot of questions about where did I start, and I'll go into a little bit more of that when the as we go on and I get to those questions. But since 2020, I've literally been fortunate enough to be camping almost, I would say, 3 times a month since 2020, and we are in October of 2023. And I started a TikTok in April of 2022. So I had 2 years of basically camping all the time. I loved it. The Subaru Outback was able to get me places that my little Scion XB, the little toaster car, wouldn't get me in the past. And I'm not going anywhere gnarly, but even like 4 service roads, it was a little sketchy. Luckily, I drive a lot on sand at work, so I was a little bit adapt to driving in sand. I remember one time I took the little Scion XB with some my cohort friends from UCSD. We went out to Anza Borrego. And I think we went to, I forget what the area was called, but basically it was like really sandy. And I remember it was 3 of us in my 2008 Scion XB. And the road's pretty good for like the first mile and a half. And then it gets really sandy and you start seeing less and less regular cars like sedans or like not Outbacks, like my regular cars that are like regular height. And I started seeing obviously a lot of Jeeps were out there, but I started seeing Subaru Outbacks out there. And I think when I think back on it, that was when I first was like, the Subaru Outback got planted in my head. And it kind of just stayed there. Like I said, this was probably like 2014 or 15. But anyway, so fast forward again. I know I'm jumping around a lot. I'll try to stay on topic. When I got the Subaru Outback, it opened up a lot of places that I could go, and I felt more comfortable driving. It is all-wheel drive. Going to like places where it's sandy, it does great, or if there's snow, it just gave me a lot more confidence to kind of get out there. And when I started going, I was like, I might as well just film this. Like I said, I watched a lot of overlanding videos. I watched a lot of YouTube of camping, and I was like, let me just give this a try. So I started a TikTok. TikTok might be another episode too, just the beast that TikTok is and the algorithm. And I did a lot of research on TikTok and like how it makes you feel and stuff. Like just there's a lot of things that go on with TikTok and what they're monitoring, and the app as far as being invasive, and ByteDance company as a whole. So I was like, all right, let me do this. Let me, make sure that like I'm comfortable doing TikTok, meaning like a lot of people get like addicted to TikTok and social media. And I always had an Instagram. I have a YouTube channel, a long graveyard of one a long time ago. A couple of them actually. Maybe people will find them, of hiking San Diego. So I was kind of familiar. I've always loved filming stuff. I don't have any classical training in film or anything like that, but I started just filming TikTok stuff and kind of like emulating what I was seeing. Wasn't really comfortable talking at first, so I was just putting sounds and like not really trends, but just like the style of filming. And I had like 4 or 5 videos, and then actually my first post that went I don't know what virality or viral means. Basically, I got a post that just picked up by the algorithm. It was actually at this campsite, ironically, and I remember I was camping with Shelby here, and I was making this TikTok, and I jokingly was sitting at a table, and I used to edit on iMovie there, and I jokingly told Shelby, I was like, hey, I got to go to work right now. So I literally sat at the laptop, and then who knew that it would become what it is now? I don't do this full time, but we'll get into, how I've gotten partnerships. But anyways, so I posted that video, and it was just so weird to see, I went from like literally 7 followers on TikTok to like 20. And then the next minute it was like 100. And the next minute it was like 150. And then I remember the whole day I was just like, this is crazy. I think that day I got like 20,000 followers in one day. And the video got, I don't know, like 200,000 views. And I don't even know what it's at now. I haven't looked at it in a long time. But after that, I was like, wow. And I had a lot of questions that came from like first time campers. And what that told me was like a lot of people want to get outdoors, but either don't know how or aren't comfortable or don't know where. So I started kind of doing the 101s of TikTok or 101s of camping. And that's what a lot of my content still is. And I actually love it. It's allowed me to really think about my setup, allowed me to really think about my setup and setting up my setup, because it's come so natural to me because I've been doing it for so long, like how to set up a tent. A lot of people don't know how to set up a tent. There's a lot of different tents and a lot of tents set up different ways as well. So I was like, I'm all about that. And what I saw there too is like a lot of people wanted to get outside, and also too, a lot of people didn't have anybody to go outside with. That's one of the things. Like one of the first barriers to outdoors is information, knowing how to go outside, knowing how to safely, efficiently, and responsibly recreate outdoors. And so I was like, wow, what if I can help in some way, shape, or form, help people get outdoors or feel more comfortable outdoors? Because a lot of times people have someone show them, like my parents showed me how to recreate outdoors, or gave me the starting points where I built on them. But a lot of people don't live places where you camp, or don't have families that camp, and you see other people on social media or even driving places, and they're like, wow, I wish I could camp, but I have no clue how or where to start. So I was like, I can show people, I think, how to camp and the basics. So that's kind of where my direction and my trajectory kind of went out there, hopefully to be that virtual person that can teach people to camp and show them how to do it safely and responsibly. The pillars of starting my channel are keep it safe, keep it clean, and keep yourself informed. And within those pillars, I think I thought about it for a long time. I think those things cover quite a bit of outdoor recreating. So to get people outdoors. So that was kind of like, step one. And ever since then, this is where I am now. I still camp almost every weekend. Me and Shelby end up getting a dog, Crinkle. I know a lot of you probably see Crinkle and love Crinkle content on TikTok and Instagram. He's actually the perfect camping dog. I was a little nervous about getting a dog first because I've seen some like pretty hyper dogs. And I was like, oh man, like sometimes like where I'm camping right now, there's a ledge that goes down behind me. And obviously you're not supposed to have dogs off leash, but what if something happens? Dogs get away, the leashes break. But Crinkle's like he's a senior dog. He's a rescue. He is the chillest freaking dog. And I miss him ridiculously right now. Side note about Crinkle, he actually went to get some growths that he has on him that are non-cancerous, thankfully, froze off today. So Shelby and him are at home. It was a last minute thing. He actually scratched one of these scabs off and was bleeding. And we were like, oh my God. And we freaked out. This was earlier this week. So we took him in, and the doctor or the vet was like, yeah, we should probably take these off just so that doesn't happen again. So they gave an antibiotic and like, hey, well, if you can come on Thursday, we won't have to give him another antibiotic. So Shelby was supposed to come on this trip, but she ended up staying with Crinkle. He's fine. He's out of his, not surgery, they put him under because they also took a couple teeth that weren't good. We think that his previous owners never took him to the vet. We have no clue. He's probably about 9 years old. Anyway, so long story short, so we had a dog that fits perfectly. So we still camp quite a bit, Shelby, me, and Crinkle, as often as we can. It's great that when we go places with service, Shelby could work from the campsite, which is awesome. But sometimes she'll take days off and we'll, go on these kind of extended trips. And that's also how I'm able to put out so much content. I love making content. I've been on a couple podcasts since I started TikTok. Warning Label podcast. I don't know if that episode ever came out or aired. I was on Andy Neal's. It was the Hiker podcast, but now it's called Adventure is Out There. I was on Whitney Lordstein's podcast. I think it's called This Might Get Uncomfortable. And I had a super fun time doing it virtually. But I was like, well, if I start a podcast, maybe it'd be cool. Oh, and of course, I was on South of the 8 podcast. South of the 8. I'm actually camping with them next weekend. And we did their podcast at one of my favorite campgrounds down in San Diego that is technically south of the 8. So that gave me the idea of like, wow, I could do this. This could happen. This could be fun. So I talked about it for a lot of times. I go live quite a bit on TikTok. So we've brainstormed a lot there. I have a notebook right here of a lot of ideas, and this is my Campthropology podcast notebook. So I'm going to be planning a lot of stuff on here. That's why I planned a lot of this episode. And yeah, so that's kind of where I've been. Also, I'm going to jump back again because I totally forgot a note I had. So when I went to UCSD, I was so the McNair program, sorry guys, I'm getting used to this because this is my first podcast. So jumping back. So when I was at UCSD, so this was probably 2017, I was in the McNair program. They said, hey, we're going to give you a research stipend to research any topic you want. You just have to get it approved by a mentor professor who would be your PI, like your primary investigator, and you can research whatever you want. And I was like, how about I do hiking? And I was like, this is not going to fly because I wanted new camp gear. I'm not going to lie. I was like, I think would like to do something on hiking. And the research stipend was, I forget how much it was, but it was enough to get me a very rudimentary but very nice backpacking setup. So my research project that I worked on for a couple years at UCSD was, I think the name, it was some fancy, it was like the transformative aspects of long distance through hiking. So being from Southern California, the Pacific Crest Trail is basically right in our backyard. I can literally look over the valley and see where it is on the mountain right now. And so I was looking at long distance hiking, and a big methodology with anthropology is called participant observation. So it's basically, or it's funny, they call it deep hanging out. So with anthropology, how our research goes is usually you go to a culture somewhere around the world and you live with the people or in the environment you are, or if you're an archaeologist, you go to a site and you stay, you live there, you eat, sleep, breathe, whatever you're researching, and you look at the culture or you look at the artifacts and you basically report back or have some kind of thesis or direction, or sometimes it's just purely, it's like ethnology is basically just gathering information. And then, so I was going to do that on hiking. So I did section A of the Pacific Crest Trail once all the way through, and then I spent a lot of nights backpacking out there. A lot of times the Pacific Crest Trail, the hikers start around April. So I just camped out there. I did what's called trail angeling at Scissors Crossing. If you're familiar with the PCT or have hiked section A, you probably know where that is. I basically just drove down there and I set up a table with chips, hot dogs, beer, and hikers love a solid chair because a lot of times they're not taking chairs. So if you can get a solid chair, you can get a hiker to sit down and talk to you for a long time. And basically what my research was looking at, and this will probably be in episode 2 where I'll go a little bit more in depth into it, but I was looking at the transformative aspects of hiking. So meaning usually when you're going on that long distance hike, if you do, or any through hike really, but specifically the Pacific Crest Trail because it takes anywhere between, 4 and 6 months, you're not at work. Your daily life is not, you get completely plucked from your life, and then you have a trail life. And if you hike at all or through hike, especially the Pacific Crest Trail, you start to have like a trail family. You get a trail name that's given to you by other people. In hiking long distance, your job is to hike. Obviously, you prepare a lot, but once you're prepared and you're ready, your job is to eat, hike, and sleep. So a lot of your decisions are made for you. So I was really curious about what happens in the mind and the body when you are just basically kind of on autopilot. People that hike a lot, sometimes like you do go on autopilot. You have huge swaths where it's either flat or even on uphills. Your mind just gets into this different mode. It's a rhythmic, almost like a dance, I feel like, where your body's just getting trashed under strenuous circumstances. And the strength and the fortitude of your mind really shines through. So I was looking at what people thought about a lot on trail, especially in the section A. If I would have extended this research, it would have been really cool to see a lot of people initially think about their safety and they think about their family. So being out there, getting used to being hardened to trail. A lot of people reported that they felt scared at first, but then I did keep in touch with people going to the Kennedy Meadows kind of mark, 400, 600, 700 miles. Then people started to feel safe on trail, and they would feel more scared going into town, where at the beginning of the hike, it was the opposite. So basically, I looked at the trail as this journey, this coming of age, but whatever age it may be, because a lot of people are retired that hike, some people are young, some people, a lot of people just lost a loved one, so they're hiking in the name of someone. Basically, you go on trail, regardless of how far you make it, coming out the other side or where you stop, you're a different person. You think about things differently. Your relationship to nature is different. Your relationship to yourself is different. I'm sure your relationship to people that don't hike or aren't outdoorsy is different, because you're all of a sudden the weird person that just slept on the ground walking a trail, probably hitting 20 plus miles a day for days on end, months on end, and how that changes you on the other side. That's when I first realized that a lot of hikers that hike long distance trails experience like a post-trail depression. So your life is so tuned into I don't even say it's relaxing. You're so tuned to the trail, because not always on trail it's relaxing, but you're so tuned to what you're doing and your identity is so solidified while on trail. You hop off trail and you're like, oh shit, what's next? What do I do next? And so you sit in that time. A lot of people actually end up hiking other trails or kind of getting the bitten by the outdoors bug and either start camping, rock climbing, mountaineering. A lot of things happen after that. But that's what my research was. So I actually spent quite a bit of time, like I said, on Section A. And then I forget when, but at the time I actually backpacked the Trans-Catalina Trail, which was a beautiful trail. I actually just found a video before I was really doing content. I mean, I wasn't doing content back then, but that I'll post pretty soon of just me hiking the trail. And it's just so funny to see. I was in way better shape then. This is even that long ago. I was like, this is probably like 2017 or something. But so I want to get back into hiking, but it just kind of opened the door to like really enjoying time outdoors. And that's when I started tent camping a lot. And then I just told you the story also when I picked up the Subaru Outback and started camping all the time. like an insane person. Like literally, I don't camp. The amount I camp is not normal. And so that's part of why I wanted to start this podcast too. A couple of episodes I'm going to be going over how I feel spending so much time outdoors, because I think it really is. And 3 years into it, it's shaping how I am as a person. It's shaping how I am to other people, and it's shaping how I'm living life, the decisions I'm making, where I'm spending my money, things that are important to me, priorities. It really has. Outdoor spaces and camping is a huge priority in my life. I would say the same thing for Shelby too. I'll have her on an episode one day, and it's really shaped our lives. I know I'm being repetitive, but in ways that I'm still going through. So again, this in itself is an ethnography. I didn't go to grad school. And for a while, I never wanted to see my mentor professors, because they would be like, dude, what are you doing? You were supposed to go to grad school. I think this is even better. Yes, it's not at an official institution, but I'm taking what I learned and the tools that I gained in school, and I'm applying it to my personal life. Hopefully it's benefiting people. And I feel like doing a lot better than if I were to just be in the classroom. Who knows? Maybe one day when I'm older, I'll go back to grad school. But as of right now, this is my heart project, my life project, life's work. I really feel like I'm at an age, I'm 36 years old, where you move through life and you really feel like the things that you do have like a feel. I don't know how to explain it, a feel to them. Like it feels really good to be doing things and putting in work and seeing the fruits of your labor that aren't just like a paycheck from a job. Seeing community. We have a Discord, and everybody that I've met from camping and TikTok in our community, I don't like to say followers, I always try to say our community, has been amazing. So Alex that's coming up here today, I met him through TikTok. And I've met a couple people camping through TikTok, and everybody has been extremely cool. We all have a lot in common. I feel like I don't really fit right into like the granola peg holes, even though I love all my granola friends too. But I'm just like a post up at camp, maybe do a tiny hike, drink a beer, sit around the fire, cook food, and just kind of hang out. And I feel like a lot of the community that I've actually camped with, through meeting them through TikTok, are like that too. So I'm really appreciative of everybody and everybody listening. I bet you a lot of you are listening to this too. And I hope to camp with a lot of you. And that's kind of the trajectory. We actually had our first group trip, another endeavor that I'm learning and experiencing how to organize in camp. We had our first group trip in Sequoia National Forest, and it was a group of us. Actually, I met Alex for the first time on this trip, and Dora, as well as there was like 8 of us there, but Alex is coming up tonight. And it was amazing. So like my goal, long-term goals, one of my goals for Campthropology is to do more group trips in an organized fashion. And here's like my camping pipe dream. All right. Picture this. Imagine like a regular campground, right? Where there's like, let's say 20 sites there. So what if we can book up a whole campground or a group campground with individual sites? So let's say there's 20 sites. 15 will be for people, like a group of 15 cars, 15 groups can come camping. And then the 5 campsites that are extra, I want to have like an activity at each site. At site 1, shout out to Chef Kyle. I still talk to him a lot. At one campsite, Chef Kyle will be doing, camp cooking lessons, easy meals, cooking gear. I do poetry. The next campsite will be, Carla, who who still runs my nonprofit, she'll do poetry workshop, nature workshop, haiku, anything creative. The next one will be fire starting. The next campsite will be campfire safety. One could be just gear, learning about camp gear. And then so this little campground in my mind of 20 campgrounds will just be like a little tiny festival. And people can come for the day, and it'll kind of be like what I'm assume, what's the overlanding event? It's slipping my mind right now. Oh my God, I can't remember what it's called, but it'll be more camping based, not just overlanding, so that people can come that want to car camp, that want to get out for a little bit and just, be out there and learn. That's kind of like my big dream for that. That would be amazing. And that's what I'm kind of working towards, as well as like juggling, working with brands and keeping up the social media presence. I honestly really enjoy it right now, but it's a lot. So now taking on this endeavor of starting this podcast, I'm hoping I'm going to love it. And I think I am going to love it, as you all can know from my lives. And I can talk for a long time. So everybody's like, bro, you're not going to have a shortage of anything to say. And I was like, yeah, you're right. At first I was a little offended, but I'm like, okay, that's true. 100%. So in that long-winded breath, I appreciate everyone being here and listening in. So I think structuring the podcast, like now I'm just going to get into like some questions that y'all asked me on TikTok and Instagram. I know I probably answered a lot of them because a lot of you asked about kind of my background and story. Luckily, my phone, I can still go through it doesn't have service, but I can go through my pictures. So I screenshotted all of them, luckily, and I wrote some of them down too, but a lot poured in. And if you don't get to your question, it's probably because you submitted it maybe a little later and my phone, like I said, just crapped out. So I'm going to get some of these questions. I'll kind of breeze over some of them that I've already answered a little bit, but I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to open it up to questions and at every podcast, because I think that this will be a good opportunity for us to grow and have a conversation. Shout out to Jasper. I'll probably have Jasper make a podcast section of our Discord. Our Discord link is in all of my bios, but that's where we have our kind of little community in there. I'm not in there enough. Like I said, with juggling a lot of this stuff, as well as work and everything, it can be quite a bit, but I would love to have this podcast be an extended conversation. And when it comes to guests, honestly, I thought a lot about it. And a lot of podcasts try to get guests that are like experts in their field, which I think is great. And I hope to have some experts on as well. But I just want to highlight our community and our people that are doing super dope shit that are not experts in outdoors, but maybe they have something that's dope that they do on the side, and how those lines merge with outdoors. So that's kind of my goal here. So I know I have a lot of people lined up already, but once I get comfortable, once I get a 2 mic set up, and then I would love to do as many as I can out here live while camping. But if that doesn't end up happening, I still have to get a dialed setup where we can do it over the phone. So again, I'm long-winded. So let's go over some of these questions. Let me go back to the beginning of the questions. I'm going to start with, actually, I don't know if I have the TikTok ones on here. We'll get them either way, because I think I have the TikTok ones written down. Or these are the TikTok ones. Let's start with the TikTok ones. All right. So first one is from Sarah. I'm just a gull on TikTok. I've actually camped with Sarah. She was one of the first people I camped from TikTok, and with Beans the Adventure Cat. That's Beans the Adventure Cat's mom. So Beans met Crinkle out there. We camped in Ojai, actually. Sarah asks, top 5 locations, when, who, what got you into camping, bucket list spots you want to go. Quite a few questions. Gear that you started with versus gear now, and must-have extras that you're obsessed with. Okay, I'm going to tackle this. Again, y'all know I'm long-winded. I'm going to try to go really quickly. Top 5 locations. Okay, something about me, too, that a lot of people are surprised with on every podcast that I go to. I have not, everybody's like, you've probably been to all the national parks. I have not. I've been to, like, Yosemite. That's it. For the first time, my cousin invited me a couple years ago. All the spots that I go to are in my backyard, and I really like developing a deep relationship with the spots that I go to. Like one of my favorite spots, there's a family of seasonal ducks that's there all the time. I talk to the camp host there. Shout out to Tim at Sibbets. He's great. There's a skunk friend that I have that scared the shit out of me the first time I was camping there, because it sounded like someone was walking. The campground was empty. It sounded like someone was walking, and I looked outside. And it's this little skunk, and I see him almost every time I go camping there. But so my top 5 locations are all going to be in SoCal, because that's the ones that I go to and I absolutely love. But I'll answer the ones too. So I would say top 5 I really love, especially I'm going to recommend ones I'm going to do 3 for people that are first-time campers that need amenities, and I'll do 2 that are kind of dispersed. First comes to mind, Paso Picacho Campground in Cleveland National Forest in Cuyamaca State Park. 3 different areas that it's defined by. Flush bathrooms. It's a state campground. Flush bathrooms, hot coin-operated showers, pretty good spaces between campsites. Feels very safe, easy to get to. Any car can get there. Beautiful views of the sky. Pine, so it's really good. I think their elevation's like 5,000 feet. It does snow there during winter, so it gets cold. Okay, so Paso Picacho Campground, probably Boulder Oaks Campground in, I think it's Descanso. Sibbets Flat Campground, which is first come, first serve, just like Boulder Oaks. First come, first serves means that you cannot make a reservation. You have to drive there and pay the Iron Ranger cash. The Iron Ranger is a little box that you put your nights in there, so you have to hope that it's available. And then probably Lake Hemet. I'm looking down at Lake Hemet right now. It's a little pricey at Lake Hemet. It's a private campground, but you can camp like right on the lake because it's a private body of water. It's a little pricey, but they do have hot showers, bathrooms. They have RV stuff too, so it gets really crowded there. Those are my 3 developed campsites, and then my 2 dispersed ones that I would say I have quite a few dispersed ones. But my favorites are probably I really love Anza Borrego State Park, anywhere around there, and Yellow Post sites in San Bernardino National Forest. I'm at a Yellow Post site right now. This one's right next in Idlewild. So yeah, I would say Yellow Post sites and Anza Borrego. And I'll have an episode completely on dispersed camping, so I can prep everybody, and if you're interested in that. What got me into camping, I kind of went over that a little bit, so we'll go from that. Bucket list spots. I really want to go to Zion for sure. I want to go anywhere in the Pacific Northwest, dispersed camping. And I would say, I want to get out camping on the East Coast. I don't know if there's a lot. I know it's very different style camping, but just seeing those different trees. Again, shout out to Jasper, who's the mod in the Discord. He was saying that there's not as many spots out here, but when he sends me pictures, it just looks so different. And I would love to experience those different kind of trees. I don't know. They look like, excuse my ignorance, but like weeping willows to me. Like they look like it looks magical and green and just very different from what we have out here in SoCal. Next question from Sarah too. What gear I started with, but what gear I have now. So honestly, I started with like Ozark Walmart stuff, and that's still great stuff. One of the huge barriers to camping is gear is so expensive, but I'm like, buy it at the price point that you can afford. You know, who knows if you're going to even like it. And all that gear is going to be good if you're camping, I would say, 5 to 10 times a year. But when you're like me and you camp every weekend, the reason why I have the more expensive gear is because a lot of times the more expensive gear lasts a lot longer, and I put my gear through the ringer. Like, it's crazy. So I do get the more expensive stuff, but like, I remember one of the first times I went camping, another campground that I go to is Doane Valley in Palomar Mountain State Park. I went and it was literally looking like it was going to rain, but my tent didn't have a rain fly. I put a trash bag on top of it and zip tied it to the freaking tent poles. And like, so that's where I kind of come from, bringing cast iron from home. Not everything was always light and packable. A sleeping bag, or not even sleeping bag, blankets and pillows from home. It can be pretty cheap, and comfortable too. And you can get to these spaces, but like I said, when you camp as much as I do and you want to fit everything, the lighter and the more compact things are, the more expensive it gets. That ultralight hiking is a whole nother aspect of expensive stuff, but that's kind of where I started. I started with kind of just the basics. And like I said, I would put all my stuff in like a big Walmart tote before I got my nice little boxes, and literally just throw everything there, and it would just sit in the garage somewhere at home. And when I wanted to go camping, I would just throw that in there and be good to go. Again, Sarah's question, must have extras that you're obsessed with. Thermacell, 100%, and above head lighting. Thermacell, obviously for mosquitoes, that thing works great, but above head lighting, because when I camp with people that don't camp often, when I have the Lucy string lights above head, no one really has to have a headlight. And I think it's better. I mean, there's something very magical. I did a post about it, looking at a group of campers huddled around a table with like a single light on the table, and everybody either has a headlight or doesn't. There's something very nostalgic about that and very magical, like I said. But now my spread is a little bit, I wouldn't say upgraded, but it accommodates people that would probably find being huddled around a table in the dark not satisfying. And one of my goals is to get first-time campers or even my friends out here comfortable camping so that people will start to camp more, then hopefully care about the outdoors more and the environment and, all that. So it's like my ulterior motive is to get people liking the outdoors so they'll start caring about the outdoors. Okay, so all right, that's all of Sarah's questions. Dirt Don't Hurt Adventures, which is also a podcast that I also love listening to. Love listening to their podcast. Asks, how did I come up with my username? This is great, and I was going to cover it earlier, but I saved it for now. And what got me into camping? So, what got me into camping? We've been going over, but how did I come up with my username? So, I'm an anthropology major, and I remember one day I was at work and I was trying to think of something right before I started my TikTok. And I'm a big bag person, meaning like bag, B-A-G, like purse, whatever you want to call it. I don't care. Satchel. I love having gear on me because what's one thing at camping is like being prepared with things, like I always carry a flashlight. I always carry a knife on me because it comes in handy even just for practical use. And Carryology is a group, an organization that talks about bags. So I was like, oh, that's really cool. And being an anthropology major, I was like, Campthropology. I literally remember the day I was in my work truck and I was like, wow, that sounds so good. Get chills right now because like looking back on it to what it's been now, I'm like, wow, I think it's amazing. From a design standpoint, it's probably not the best because no one knows how to spell it or pronounce it. But I love it. I hope it's memorable. It's Campology. It's so I don't care how people say it. I get the point when people say it, but it is kind of tough. It's Campthropology, like anthropology. So the study of like humans camping. So ology comes from suffix ology, like the study of biology, geology. So Campthropology. That's how I came up with the name. So thanks for that question. I appreciate that. Molly Starshine from TikTok asking, what was your first solo camping trip as an adult like? Oh, wow, this is a great question. What gear? Were you geared to the nines or did you go bare bones? Like I said, I started bare bones for sure, just like we talked about. But my first solo trip and how I got into solo camping was going to, I think it was Paso Picacho campground. Going to an established campground where there's a camp host, there's other people, get a reservation, do it on a weekend if there's other people out there, because that's what made me feel comfortable just camping. The motions of camping, sleeping outside in a tent in the wilderness is having other people around, especially at a developed campground, like I said, where there is a camp host. So that's what I recommend to people. Or, camp in your backyard. I'm a big advocate for that. I know I'm also a big advocate for Slim Pickens Outfitters in Stevensville, Texas. Every year they do this like camp in your backyard live content where they basically just talk about go in your backyard, set up your tent for the first time out in your backyard so you're not frustrated and feel all pressured when you're out there. Shout out to Jamaica out there and Heather Dawes holding it down. I was going to put my Slim Pickens shirt on, but I love them, but that's a great idea. So if you're wanting to get into solo camping, literally go in your backyard, see if you can stay out there for an entire night, come and use the bathroom if you need to, but go back out. So yeah, and I started kind of bare bones, stuff from home, not necessarily made for camping. And that's kind of where we went from there. Let's see. Let me go to a couple more. I'm scrolling through. My screen's cracked right now, so it's kind of hard to see some of the stuff on here. Let's see. Laura Outdoors plus Cryptids. When I'm going to be on the podcast, I'm going to have you on for sure. Once I get comfortable having people on the podcast, like I said, we're at number 1 right now. Stacey Ray asking, good budget-friendly camping must-haves and what to splurge on and what you can go a little cheaper on. This is great. I think you can get pretty quality tents for also cheap. The tents, like even my Snow Peak tent, I am a Snow Peak partner. It's my dream brand to work with. Like I feel like I could not work with any brands, and like I love Snow Peak. It's an expensive tent. Like I said, it's gonna last. It's a legacy tent. I'm gonna give it to my kids one day. But honestly, I had like an Ozark Trail tent. I still have an Ozark Trail tent, and that's what I lend to people when they camp with me and they don't have a tent, and it's still in great condition. So I would say you can definitely go cheaper on the tent, especially if you're car camping and if you're camping in temperate weather. Obviously, if you're gonna go snow camping, you're gonna want something a little bit more sturdy, but we can get into that later. But yeah, so Ozark, dude, Walmart brand is good. I'm a big fan of getting on OfferUp, getting on Facebook Marketplace. Get your gear at the price point that you can afford, and then when you do decide to splurge, I think splurging on something like a good sleeping pad system. So system meaning a pad and a bag if you're going to sleep on the tent, because you want to be comfortable. You want to be able to, enjoy your sleep outside and not just sleep. You can, like, hikers use those Z packs. I could never sleep on those egg crate carton looking things. Like I would be miserable. You want to wake up well rested, and you're going to enjoy that morning so much more if you sleep really well. So that's something I would spend a little bit more money on. Cheaper on the tent, but spend a little more if you can on your mattress and your sleeping bag and a pillow for me. So just your whole sleeping system, whatever that may look like. I also think you can go cheap on your cooking system. A lot of the Coleman stoves, I still use the Coleman 2-burner that everybody has. That thing's a workhorse. But you want to have a way to heat up food, not necessarily cook. And I'm a big advocate of, if you're going to go for one night, get a pizza and then get a breakfast burrito, or make a breakfast burrito at home, make some sandwiches, something you don't have to heat up, for sure. Another thing too that I'm thinking, what would I go more expensive on, for car camping specifically? Let's see. Oh, clothing too. Being comfortable is the main draw. Just be comfortable. That's going to have you be the best time. Get a solid, it doesn't have to be expensive. You don't have to get Patagonia, like a $300 jacket, but get some good layers, get some good cheap wool layers that will, hold heat in, even if it gets a little wet. A good jacket, Columbia makes a lot of really good stuff. I've worked with Columbia a lot, and I love their jackets. I actually have one of their new jackets in the car that they sent me. I'm going to put on. I totally forgot I had it. But yeah, so be able to, and know the weather too. Like something that's you should invest in, not necessarily money, but time, is knowing the weather. Try to camp in the temperate season for wherever you're from. So yeah, appreciate that, Stacy. I think that, let's see, did I get all the TikTok ones? I wrote down a lot of the TikTok ones. But a lot of them came from Instagram as well. So let's hop over to Instagram now. Let's see. What are my hobbies? I think Aaron here is asking, what are my hobbies that I have other than camping? Great question, because I do a lot of them camping. A lot of my content has to do with them too. I really love music. So I play guitar. I play drums in a band as a kid. I mean, like early 20s, late teens. I play drums. I love the drums. I play a little bit of every instrument. I play the didgeridoo, but I actually have the ability to start this podcast because one of my buddies, shout out to Louie, who also might come up here, Bit Lost, you'll probably see him in some of my posts, really got me into like electronic music, specifically electronic music where you don't have to have a laptop. They call it DAW-less, which DAW stands for Desktop Audio Workstation. But basically I have this little box that you've probably seen, and you can compose little music on there. I love doing that in nature. So I love music for sure. Camping, man, honestly, everything can come to my head is just camping. I love poetry. I love writing poetry. I would like to read more than I do, but like I said, I had a poetry nonprofit and we did spoken word poetry. I'm not so big on spoken word poetry anymore, but I do love just like page poetry. I'm a big writer, creative writing, anything creative. I used to do a lot of stencil work because I was crap at freehand drawing, so I love cutting stencils. And like design, I wish I could be more into digital design, but like arts, kind of like an artsy fartsy person, poetry writing too. I love all that stuff. So great question. Thanks, Aaron. Gio, who's my buddy from work, asks, what's my background, purpose of podcasting? There would be good topics. Yeah, totally. I think I went over quite a bit of that. So my background, I'm half Mexican, half Filipino also too. So that's why I do a lot of Filipino longanisa cooking. I want to do a lot more cooking when it comes to Filipino food and Mexican food outside. I'm actually getting I used to not like cooking while camping. That'll be a story for another episode. But yeah, so that's my background, and then my background of where I come from as far as like culturally and, how I got into camping. We've been talking about that. So appreciate you, Gio. I'll see you at work pretty soon. I'm out on Sunday, but I'll see you next Sunday. I'm camping. Melody of the River. Oh, love Melody. Love that Leave No Trace shirt that me and Shelby are always wearing. She designs them and sells them. Check her out on Instagram. What are some things that you do differently now that you're more versed in the outdoors? Great question, and will probably be a whole episode in itself because this is exactly what I was talking about. I'm loving that you guys are seeing like my thought process too of like where I am in life as camping too. It's coming through just like naturally. But one of the things that when I first got into camping was really big on was everyday carry, being prepared for whatever. It doesn't have to be a disaster or an emergency, but I love having, like I said, a flashlight on me, a knife on me, chapstick on me, sunscreen, a little tiny first aid kit that I put in like an Altoid size box, like a couple Band-Aids, Neosporin. I just got those little tweezers that I love. I love that kind of stuff. And camping, that all came from camping, because when you're camping and you use those things, there's nothing worse than when you're out camping, you need something, you don't have it. So what's that? What's it? Boy Scouts or something that's like, it's better to need something and not have it than it's better to have it, not need it, than need it, not have it. I really like that. And I'm going to expand on that and how that's come into my life, even like, I think there's a big thing in there with mental health too, as far as how mental health prepares and kind of molds you, and me specifically, I hope maybe other people, kind of shapes you to be more prepared emotionally for things. And that's going to be an episode in itself. Check out Melody of the River. Shout out to Melody. Let's see. Jen asks, start with the Genesis. Okay, so I love that. Start with the Genesis. So that's what we've kind of been going over. That's what this whole episode is kind of about. How I was raised and how I got into camping. Yeah, so we grew up not as like camping all the time, but enough to get the bug in me. My mom practices a nature-based religion, and my dad likes being outdoors too. But my dad has this. I have to take his truck out. I have to let him. Dad, if you're listening, I have to borrow your truck one day. Love my dad. Souped out Tacoma. I'm trying to get him to come camping. He has an awning and everything, but Dad, we're gonna get you camping one day. I call his truck the Pavement Princess, because it's never seen a lick of off-road. But Dad, we're gonna get you out here camping one day. Maybe I'll put you guys on my parents on the podcast too. I love my parents. I'm fortunate enough to have a really great relationship with both of my parents. They're both extremely supported. So shout out, love you, Mom and Dad. Mom came on the group trip we did because she was dialing in her setup. She just bought a little Nissan Edge, I think it is. So she got this cool one of those where you can back up the car into the tent. So I'm picking her up out here camping too. But so love the parents. But okay, appreciate that, Jen. Next question, Stefan. What's one of your favorite memories while camping? Wow, I would have to say probably this is a really good one. Wow, I would say I have a really magical memory. My mom will definitely remember this. I know she's gonna listen to this podcast. I don't even know. I think it might have been a camping trip. I can't remember, but it's probably an outdoor memory. We were in Sedona, Arizona, and we were up at one of the vortexes at night, and there was a puddle on the ground. This is gonna get a little magical. And the puddle was still, and it was at night, and you can see, it was a clear night. You can see so many stars out there. And we were on our knees looking into the puddle, looking at the reflection of the sky in this puddle that's like, wasn't even that deep. But literally, I mean, I feel like I was probably a late teen at the time, but it was literally trippy. It was a magical experience. And experiencing just almost like you were looking into the earth and looking at stars inside the earth. And like I said, my mom practices a nature-based religion, so it was a very beautiful moment. I will never forget that, looking in there and showing how the stars and the earth are connected in that way was probably, it's the first memory that comes into mind, and the fun, and probably my most fondest. The funnest, okay, I just thought of another one. The funnest. This was not safe. I'm not going to lie. I'll put this out there 100% right now. We were camping in San Felipe, and my uncle loves fireworks. Shout out to Uncle Tony. We were out there, and we were on the beach, and he had one of those fireworks things that shot off a lot of fireworks. So all the kids were out there, like, on the beach, and I'm pretty sure it was Baracho. He was out there, had a couple drinks. So he puts one of these things in the ground that's going to shoot off, like, 10 fireworks, but he puts it into the wind. Again, this is not safe. This is not safe. This is also like not in the United States. That doesn't, either way, like, it was just a really crazy experience. I highly do not use fireworks in the forest, but this is a really fun memory I had as a kid. We all learn and we all grow. And Uncle Tony, Theo, if you're listening now, don't do that. If we go camping again, not do that. Anyways, he puts them there, and he puts them against the wind, so he shoots them off. These fireworks start coming back at us, and we were like, oh my God. They literally were shooting off like and they would come and like explode right next to us. It was scary as shit at the time, but it was pretty fun as a kid looking back on it. It was also magical in a different way. Togs805 Instagram. What got into camping? Went through that. What's your favorite part about camping and being outdoors? Honestly, my favorite part about camping is allowing the space to not think about normal things. Normal things meaning like the worries that you're at work. And you can do this on vacation, like a lot of things. Like we live in such a society where everybody's constantly, in a state of like stress and anxiety. And it's really sad that the world kind of feels like it's like that. But now it's just so, being outdoors is so calming. And for me, that's when I can really just let my mind wander, and explore emotions, explore thoughts, explore things. This sunset behind me is amazing right now. That's why I did this podcast at this location. So if you watch the video aspect, I'll try to get this on YouTube. It's probably a huge file, but this is part of it. Like if I wasn't on the podcast, I would just be sitting here facing that way with the beer. I have my beer right here. I haven't been drinking it because I'm talking so much. Let me take a sip. Cheers, everyone. And being just out here experiencing, thinking, allowing yourself to heal, create, think. That's one of my favorite things. Great question. My cousin Jared, so happy to help with more once you get a few on paper. Oh, that wasn't a question. He wants to help. Oh, sweet. Definitely, Jared. Shout out. Yeah, Jared's actually the one that invited me to Yosemite because they won the lottery for North Pine. And it was the first time I've been to Yosemite, so I was super grateful. And the campsite itself was amazing. It was such a great time. C. Kobe, how did you get into this? Again, we've done a little bit of that. What was it, someone or experience who influenced you? It's a little bit of both, I think. I think we went over this, but like I said, I kind of drive that home that a lot of times people, if you don't have someone to show you the ropes of outdoors, it's hard to do it by yourself. It's really intimidating. It's a daunting task. There's gear, there's safety, there's feeling comfortable. So, luckily my parents and friends too, a lot of times we would go out not really knowing what we were doing and just kind of learn along the way. Where are you camping next, Annalise? So that's actually, she asked this before, obviously, I got out here, but I'm actually in Mountain Center, Idlewild area right now. Illustrado. Yes, I did camp as a kid. That's another question. Another memory. Did I do this question already? Oh, I think it's the same. A lot of you have the same questions, which is also cool. Okay, so Jackie. Oh, what's up, Jackie? Favorite climate to camp in and why? Love your videos. Thanks for bringing us along. Definitely. All right. Favorite camping climate. The easiest camping climate is temperate, like early, late spring before it's too hot, too cold. But excuse me, got a burp. I'll try to figure out how to edit that out a little bit. Maybe not. But I love snow camping. I've only done it once, and it's on my YouTube channel. And it's a campground there was no service, but it was comfortable there. And I drove, it was so magical. And it was also pretty scary too. So I drove the Outback into the campground and there was no tracks into the campground. So obviously the Outback is very capable. It wasn't a gnarly drive. It was a paved road, but there's something just so peaceful and quiet about camping out in the snow. I actually slept inside the Outback that night because the snow actually did come down like flurries. Again, it's Southern California, but it was last winter when we had like snow at a really low level. I just heard a sound over there. I think there's some other campers setting up. Anyways, but appreciate the question. That's my favorite camping, Jackie. Tell us your first time camping, how it went, and the gear you started with. Beto, what's up, Beto? Beto the Adventurer. Shout out to Beto. He actually, also congratulations, he just got a job with Search and Rescue out in Arizona, so he is on TikTok and Instagram too, but super stoked for that journey for you, man. I'm so excited to follow it too. Once you do start getting posting, I know it's a lot because he's training right now, and that's awesome. But I think I covered kind of those questions too. How did you even get into camping? Okay, we covered that as well. How do you get sponsors and deals? Also a good question. Honestly, I've been so lucky. So I've worked with Columbia, I've worked with Rumble, I've worked with Snow Peak, Timber Dog Beds, Walmart. I actually got selected in TikTok way in the early beginning. And I've been so fortunate and so grateful that I never have really had to pitch to brands. I don't know how they find me, but they've reached out to me, and it's been super cool to like make a little bit of side, money doing something I love. It doesn't feel like work. So I'm trying to move my life in that direction. It'd be great if I can do this full time, you know? But yeah, I don't know how to get them. I actually just signed with an agency. Shout out to the Actors Group in Amelia recently. So I have a couple companies we're talking to right now, that I'm excited to come out with too. But yeah, I think it's just what I kind of started doing too before I got sponsorships was just using and tagging brands on TikTok that I already used and loved. And that's what I always do too. If you ever see content, sponsored stuff coming from my page, it's because I either one, use the brand thoroughly already, two, have been interested in the brand. And one of my caveats when I get sponsorships is if I haven't worked with the brand anymore, I want them to give me time to use their product, at least a solid 2 months. And if they're not down for that, I'm not down for it. So, but yeah, use gear. And when you do use gear, tag the brands in there, and use hashtags on TikTok. I think it worked really well because a lot of the brands weren't on TikTok when I started tagging them. So when a brand comes onto a new platform, the first thing they're going to do is search their own hashtag. And so my videos would pop up. So that's kind of like was my strategy at the beginning there. Live life and create. What started my love for camping? Appreciate the question. But again, I think we've covered that kind of pretty much in depth. Top 5 campsites also, they're asking, I can't tell. But yeah, I think I went over those at the beginning too. greengoblin.jk, shout out. Amazing rig. Invited me to go off-roading if I ever get out to New York, and I'm going to take you up on that. What prompted my love for the outdoors and camping? Again, we've been going over that. And if you have any more specific questions, now that I'm kind of answering this, I'm going to do a Q&A at the end of every episode. So we can get into more in depth. Natalie asking the same thing. Appreciate the question still though. Did I grow up camping and outdoors? Indiana James, shout out James. Do rangers or forest patrol ever make it out to far campsites? Great question. And I would say yes. Usually, I would say, especially when I'm dispersed camping, like out here, this is, like I said, the spot I'm at right now is probably an hour from a paved road. And I have seen a ranger come up here. They usually come right when they start enforcing fire restrictions, and they usually come Saturday mid-morning, I feel like, because they want to see, not Friday because people are just getting set up. What I think they're doing is they're waiting for people to get relaxed and settled in, and they want to see if they have a fire, if anything weird is going on. But yes, rangers do come around, even the dispersed sites. I've seen them in the desert as well. And then if you're at a campground, a lot of times the camp host does also come around. Make sure you're following your rules, but also making sure you have what you want. At Doan Valley, their rangers up there actually drive their truck full of firewood that you can buy to your campsite if it's snowing up there. That's another story for a different time too. We actually had Thanksgiving camping one time, and it snowed, and we didn't know it was going to snow. But I think that's all the questions that I wrote down and could screenshot before, like I said, my phone went kaput. But yeah, I'm going to conclude this episode. It was probably way longer than I ever anticipated, but I want to say shout out to everyone that asked the questions. I super appreciate everybody for following along with this Campthropology journey. Like I said, this is just episode 1. I have a lot of topics that I'm going to be exploring as we kind of move on, and a lot of guests. Some of the topics I have written down. So also shoot me over topics that you want covered, and I'll be more concise and a little bit more sticking on topic as I get things that we're actually, specific things that we're actually talking about. I'm going to do probably a podcast on Shinrin Yoku, which is what I came across in my research with the Pacific Crest Trail, which is Japanese. It translates to nature bathing, meaning the psychological and biological and neurological effects of being out in nature. A lot of great research coming out of Japan in that, and I've been doing research. I'm reading a book right now that I'll be reading a book, not writing a book, that I'll be kind of walking through and explaining that. I'm going to do an epic poo view episode, of course, talking about, how to do your business outside camping more in depth, and a little bit of my stories on that. I'll do an episode on PCT research, an episode probably, honestly, not even if it's sponsored, but I want to do an episode on Snow Peak and other brands too, maybe even Columbia, and what they stand for and why I think that those brands work for me and what I find really inspiring about them and what I find really useful about them and how they fit into my style of camping. I'm gonna do a gorp core because Shelby is so fashionable. She always looks so good with her clothes and her hair. I always want to be more fashionable. So I'm going to do a thing on Gorp Core, which is good old raisins and peanuts, what it stands for. It's like outdoor fashion that's really big in Europe. So in Europe, it's like, remember when the whole gym clothes, it's what's like gym, there's a word for it. Like you go to like, Trader Joe's or like the mall and everybody looks like they just got back from the gym, but they're just going to the mall. In Europe, there's a little subculture of people that look like they just got done camping. They're like snow peaked out or like Columbia, Arc'teryx, and they're just walking around. It's a fashion thing for them, and I find that super interesting. We're going to go into that. Of course, how camping shapes, life for me personally. I would love to have, guests on. I'm going to have a lot of the guests on too, if anybody would want to be on. I might even pop it on Alex. I don't think he even knows I'm filming episode 1 before he gets here right now. Oh, let me check the Zolio real quick, by the way. He's on his way. Maybe we'll do episode 2. It'll just be me and Alex just kind of shooting the shit. And I hope that you guys find this beneficial. Just seeing, like I said, I'm hoping I'm providing value for everybody. I hope you learn a little something, but I hope that you just get to see that there's a lot of different people that camp outside, a lot of big, influencers too. Sometimes we get niched into certain things. So I want to have a little bit of everything and the stories behind people and how we met my guests. Cause a lot of the guests, like I said, I met through TikTok, how they got into camping, what they do. And a lot of the questions you guys asked me, one of the reasons why I want you guys to ask me questions, because I want to build a log of questions to ask guests. So I'm going to start combing through those and asking guests kind of the same questions. That sunset is just so beautiful behind us. Yeah, so that's episode 1. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed doing this. Sorry if it's long-winded, but I listen to long podcasts too, and I hope that you guys found it entertaining. Until then, if you're new here, which you're probably not on episode 1, follow me if you would like to on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. The links in my bio to our Discord, as well as other podcasts that I've been on. I'm going to put this podcast link in there. I haven't even signed up for a platform to upload the podcast. So I got to figure out how to do that before this hits there. So again, I appreciate everyone being here. And until next time, remember to keep it safe, keep it clean, and keep yourself informed. Like and follow, subscribe. I don't even know what to ask on podcasts. You guys subscribe, download. I don't know. Just click something. Engagement, I guess. I don't know. I appreciate you guys being here. We'll see you on episode 2, which I hope to be doing episodes once a month for sure. I can promise you guys once a month, and I'm going to try to do twice a month. All right. Until the next time. See you, everyone.